right here at the end, we have God's response, and then kind of what Job does afterwards, and kind of can talk through all this. Yeah, we're in chapter 38 of Job. And just as a quick refresher, Job, there's this like kind of heavenly court scene, and Job is he has all this stuff, all these things. He's very wealthy, family. There was a couple things that were kind of concerning to us at the beginning. One, it seems like Job is hedging. So it's like, here is this, here's my, he's been doing sacrifices just in case his kids get drunk and curse God, seems like he's hedging. Let's see what someone else said. There was another one. I can't remember what we said. Does anyone else remember? There was another big thing with the beginning of Job. But so all this tragedy falls onto Job, and then his friends come up, and they are unhelpful. And in our study that through Job this time, it's really become aware to me about how much conventional wisdom Job's friends are using. Like, they're saying things that I have said in the past. They're saying things that I hear people say. They're saying things like, we had that sermon series that was called Say What? That's not in the Bible. It's that type of wisdom, and they're saying all these things. And the thing is they're not, and some of the things they're saying, they're not wrong. Like, that is wisdom. And I think this is kind of asking us, it's like, well, if they're not wrong, then what is wrong about it? And I think we're beginning to get a sense of, in Job, that it's not necessarily the correctness of the things you're saying, but kind of how you're using it too. And that's because I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, I can just say a true thing, throw it out into the ether, and my work is done here, right? And I think Job is challenging that idea. I think Job is challenging that idea. I think Jesus challenges that idea a lot. And I think that's what we're kind of going through in the Gospel of Mark, because sometimes we view salvation in our correctness and how we can say and believe correct things. So that's, I think we're seeing that. And we get all the way to kind of the here and the end. And Job even he's still even problematic this whole time. He's like, I need my day in court and all of that. And so we kind of all get to this point now where the Lord talks. So did anyone have anything they'd like to say before we read through 38, 39, 40, and 41? We'll stop at the end of 41, and we'll do 42 after that.
Does it seem like either of you just all of a sudden stopped because the Lord started?
I think the way this book is written is everything is kind of poetic, and so there's like an argument and then a counter argument, an argument, counter argument, and I think they have said their arguments now. And so now it's God's turn for his argument. Some of the things that I wanted to say at the beginning before we read 38, it's pretty clear, and this is all from the Jewish Study Bible. This is one of my favorite Bibles. It's pretty clear that Job doesn't receive an answer to his question the whole time. And his question is, why? Why is this happening to me? He doesn't really receive an answer to that. Let's see here. So the dressing down of Job here could be interpreted as a message of humility. And that's really how I take this book, that it's a call for humility and that wisdom is found in humility. So then I'll read this little paragraph here. On the most fundamental level, God responds to Job in order not to forfeit the lawsuit Job has mounted against him. However, by showing Job that he has no direct knowledge of his ways, God dismisses the case pro forma. Job is not a competent witness and cannot therefore bring charges against the deity. It's often assumed that Job is somehow satisfied or convinced by God's presentation, but this depends on your personal understanding of what's going on. Like, so this book doesn't offer a ton of direct answers. And I think the wisdom is found in the chewing of everything and in the digesting of it all. Right. So let's continue going on here. If we have problems with the sound again, please let me know. And we will fix that. So let's see here.
Let's see. Can I turn the light on?
What's the matter?
I always see a glare.
That's from the.
Is that from that?
I don't know what it's from, but it's just glare. Sorry.
Is that better?
Better.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
No sunlight.
Yeah, no sunlight. Well, that's why I close everything for the cameras and all that. Let's see here. All right. Let's see here. We got to hit this button. Then I got to hit this button. Then I got to hit this button. And then this button. All right.
Good job.
Yeah. Here we go.
Except I can't read it.
Then the Lord answered Job
Who's in
out
charge
of
of
the
the font?
whirlwind.
Us or you?
Can you hear it?
Who is this who darkens counsel
hear it,
by
kids.
words
Read
without
it.
knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a...
Oh, it's too small. It's too small.
That's too small.
Yeah. Hit medium. There you go. Whoa.
That's
There-
better.
All right. We'll start.
Oh, wait a minute. More better.
Since we're here talking about it, this first verse, the Lord answered Job out of a whirlwind. It's 3 times in the arguments. I think it's 3 times, maybe more, that everybody is accusing Job and Job of his friends, that they are just like the words they're saying is like hot air, like a whirlwind. And so it's the same type of wording here. And so I think you're starting to get the wisdom of what this is when God is answering out of that whirlwind.
Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind.
Who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding, who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst forth and issued from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, when I fixed my limit for it and set bars and doors, when I said, this far you may come but no farther, and here your proud waves must stop. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth? and the wicked be shaken out of it? It takes on form like clay under a seal, and stands out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and the upraised arm is broken. Have you entered the springs of the sea, or have you walked in search of the depths? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the doors of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the breadth of the earth? Tell me, if you know all this. Where is the way to the dwelling of light? And darkness, where is its place? That you may take it to its territory, that you may know the paths to its home. Do you know it because you were born then, or because the number of your days is great? Have you entered the treasury of snow? Or have you seen the treasury of hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? By what way is light diffused, or the east wind scattered over the earth? Who has divided a channel for the overflowing water, or a path for the thunderbolt to cause it to rain on a land where there is no one? A wilderness in which there is no man, to satisfy the desolate waste, and cause to spring forth the growth of tender grass. Has the rain a father? Or who has begotten the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice, and the frost of heaven? Who gives it birth? The waters harden like stone, and the surface of the deep is frozen. Can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades, or loose the belt of Orion? Can you bring out Mazzaroth in its season? Or can you guide the great bear with its cubs? Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? Can you set their dominion over the earth? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that an abundance of water may cover you? Can you send out lightnings, that they may go and say to you, "Here we are"? Who has put wisdom in the mind, or who has given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds by wisdom? Or who can pour out the bottles of heaven when the dust hardens in clumps and the clods cling together? Can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions when they crouch in their dens or lurk in their lairs to lie in wait? Who provides food for the raven when its young ones cry to God and wander about for lack of food? The time when the wild mountain goats bear young? Or can you mark when the deer gives birth? Can you number the months that they fulfill? Or do you know the time when they bear young? They bow down, they bring forth their young, they deliver their offspring. Their young ones are healthy, they grow strong with grain, they depart and do not return to them. Who set the wild donkey free? Who loosed the bonds of the onager, whose home I have made the wilderness, and the barren land his dwelling? He scorns the tumult of the city. He does not heed the shouts of the driver. The range of the mountains is his pasture, and he searches after every green thing. Will the wild ox be willing to serve you? Will he bed by your manger? Can you bind the wild ox in the furrow with ropes? Or will he plow the valleys behind you? Will you trust him because his strength is great? Or will you leave your labor to him? Will you trust him to bring home your grain and gather it to your threshing floor? The wings of the ostrich wave proudly, but are her wings and pinions like the kindly stork's? For she leaves her eggs on the ground and warms them in the dust. She forgets that a foot may crush them, or that a wild beast may break them. She treats her young harshly, as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain, without concern, because God deprived her of wisdom and did not endow her with understanding. When she lifts herself on high, she scorns the horse and its rider. Have you given the horse strength? Have you clothed his neck with thunder? Can you frighten him like a locust? His majestic snorting strikes terror. He paws in the valley and rejoices in his strength. He gallops into the clash of arms. He mocks at fear and is not frightened, nor does he turn back from the sword. The quiver rattles against him, the glittering spear and javelin. He devours the distance with fierceness and rage, nor does he come to a halt because the trumpet has sounded. At the blast of the trumpet, he says, "Aha!" He smells the battle from afar, the thunder of captains and shouting. Does the hawk fly by your wisdom and spread its wings toward the south? Does the eagle mount up at your command and make its nest on high? On the rock it dwells and resides, on the crag of the rock and the stronghold. From there it spies out the prey. Its eyes observe from afar. Its young ones suck up blood. And where the slain are, there it is. Shall the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? He who rebukes God, let him answer it.
Then Job answered the Lord.
Behold, I am vile. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer. Yes, twice, but I will proceed no further.
All right, let's stop right there here for a little bit. There's plenty to talk about in that area. All right, so did anything stand out to anybody here? And here's what I want. Here's the question I want you to have in the back of your mind that we're kind of thinking. How is what God is saying here different than what the friends in Job was saying? So, what do you think? What do you think?
Friends were telling Job, you must have done something wrong.
Okay.
And if you had done the right things, this would not have happened.
Yeah.
God is telling Job, how can you dare to call me to account for what happened? Because I am the creator. Mm-hmm. I take care of my creation, and you don't have the slightest idea of that amount of wisdom or power.
Mm-hmm. Now, the friends were saying that too, though.
Yeah, but they were also accusing.
They're also accusing.
Remember, Job went into this with, I did everything right. Why did this happen?
Mm-hmm. So with that accusing language, then remember that's a very similar word to the Satan at the beginning. And so like that's that kind of language you can't just throw away like that. And I think there's a connection there with what you're saying about the friends, like to that courtroom at the beginning, so that maybe it's a continuation of that play out.
And the word wisdom keeps coming up in here too when God is talking.
Okay. In what ways? In what ways?
He's challenging He's challenging Job. He's saying, you demanded a hearing. Now explain to me on what grounds you demanded this hearing.
Yeah.
Because I am the only one with true wisdom.
Yeah.
And I am only one who can absolutely say the absolute right. This is right.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way it should be. And you don't have that power. So how can you come to me and say, hey, look, I did everything right. Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. And so verse 39, 40, and 39 and 40, the Hebrews Bible says something interesting. It says that one is, can you hunt the prey for the lion or satisfy the appetite of the young lions? When they crouch in their dens or lurk in their lairs, they lie in wait. Their note is, Eliphaz had likened the wicked to lions, and Job had depicted the deity as a predatory lion. Here God provides food for the lion. Ravens feed on that's verse 41. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. There's all this lion talk, and all these things. And he's like, God, you're prowling around like a lion. And then and it's like, oh, the wicked are like these lions, which is still, that's like Peter language.
The Lion of Judah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of Peter language too. And then God is kind of, it's almost like taking that language. It's the same thing we did with the whirlwind at the beginning, that, it is all of this, like, out of the midst of all of your hot air. Here we go. We're talking here, and it's like you're saying all this evil stuff about the lions, but hey, like, I feed them.
Still from that.
Yeah, like that's, and so it's almost like this little like dissonance that's being created with this imagery, that everyone is like, they're saying like these lions is the whirlwinds, the hot air, the hot bags, all that stuff, and God is coming in and using all of that to maybe show the absurdity in the arguments, type of thing. I don't know. Like I don't know. Did you see anything else that kind of stood out to you?
That just woke me up when we got into verse 7 of chapter 38, right in the beginning, on the New King James Version, and it talks about the morning stars sang together, and all of God's sons shouted for joy. And mine says heavenly being.
Yeah.
So when I thought all of God's sons, I'm thinking there's more than one Jesus,
Oh, yeah. So you have sons of God. You have sons. Yeah. Like that. That's sons of God. And like, you remember the Gospels are playing a game with us when they're calling Jesus the Son of God. Because Son of God in Jesus' world was a title for Caesar. So they're playing a game with us with that, because they're saying that Jesus is the Son of God. And every time they say that, they're saying that someone besides Caesar is. It's also a true thing about Jesus being the Son of God, because there is Old Testament language, especially like in Isaiah and Jeremiah, about the Son of God coming and all that. But like these kind of references are like references of the sons of God being kind of the like in Genesis, the sons of God laid with the daughters of men and created the Nephilim and the giants of old type of thing. And so the sons of God is kind of that heavenly, kind of more powerful kind of idea. So
the other thing is pointed out in the study Bible that Elihu was telling Job that he wasn't going to be hearing from God.
Yeah.
Then you shouldn't expect to hear from him, and it's not going to happen. And yet here is God talking to him.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a good observation. Actually, that's a good observation. I like that verse 7 is too. I had a note on it. I forgot to mention it, but the verse 7, when it says the morning stars sang together, it's referencing, like, this whole thing is kind of talking about the foundations being laid and all of that. So, like, the creative being there, and
They even named some of the clusters way back then.
yeah. So that's so. And what I like about it, and a version of, and you guys have heard me talk about this, but I think Genesis 1 is a song, and it's kind of talking about how God sang creation into existence. And that view is very old, and it's being referenced here. The fact that God sang the world into existence. Like, there's a modern movement that is like, oh, it happened just like this, boom, boom, boom. That view isn't biblical, even though they're trying to make it biblical. It's
They're trying to make that view.
well, the view of just like, this is how it happened and this happened, like that's it's there's a concerted effort to make that happen. Answers in Genesis is one of the key spreaders of that heresy, and just by saying that, I could get in trouble. So, like, that's, but and I can show you. I could show you the prevalence of that, because there's Answers in Genesis stuff inside of one of our Lutheran magazines and things like that. So whenever anyone asks me, do you believe in the 6 literal days of creation? I go, sure. Well, what's it actually saying? It's a song. It's a song, and it's being referenced there in Job, in the same verse that you pointed out. And so it's the old view.
Bill Johnson was a strict believer in the
6 literal
days.
Yeah. So it's one of the things we use in Synod to decide if you're a heretic or not. And so I would rather read the Bible and be a heretic than that's such a prideful statement, but it's
I was going to say, you're a couple of 100 years too late.
Yeah. So
Somebody said that already.
yeah. But that's one of those things. I'm glad you pointed that out, Cheryl, because that was there. I also thought verse 19 and 20 was interesting. That verse 19 says, "Where is the way of the dwelling of light, and darkness, where is its place?" It sounds like, and I think it was you that was talking about wisdom, that they keep talking about wisdom in here. It seems like a creative way of talking about that wisdom.
Jesus also refers to him as himself, I am the light.
Yeah.
Because I when we read that, that's what I thought of, light.
Mm-hmm.
This is Jesus.
Yeah. So there's the light, and it's like, there's understanding here. So it's like you're saying that you want this light, but like there's not much there. Let's see here. Going on to chapter 39, he starts going into talking about created animals of kind of power, like the ox and all those things. And he talks about a war horse, which is kind of interesting, and that's I don't think that's really a image that is in our minds of, it's, you think about like Bronze Age mentality and when cavalries started and things like that, and how much powerful a mounted warrior was than just someone on their feet. And you put yourself into that world, and this begins to make sense. Just the ferociousness of a war horse, and so he's kind of talking about all that. Verse 26, it's much the same thing. Does a hawk fly by your wisdom and spread its wings towards the south? And does an eagle mount up on your command and make its nest on high? Whenever I see eagle in the Old Testament, it's one of my favorite things to talk about, because whenever we think of eagles, our like patriotic bones start quivering, and so like, oh, eagles. It's the same word for buzzards. So like that. Vultures. Yeah, vultures. like that. That's whenever your patriotic bones start quivering when you start seeing eagles in the Old Testament. Just remember, it's the same word for vulture too. So that it's just a big wingspan bird, all that stuff. So that's like an Isaiah passage then, mounted on wings of vultures, like that.
But didn't Rome use the eagle also on their?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And Rome's use of eagle is specific to the eagle. Yeah. Lot of wanting to be powerful empires have used eagle as a representation of what's going on.
Because they serve as reminders, all these wild animals, that people are not as fully in control of the world as they might say.
Yeah.
And I think that's and that's kind of why I wanted to stop right here, because we continue going on into this. And so, but I think that's a good thing. It's like things, you're not as in control as you might think you are. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us, because they're talking about all this in their time and space. And we just know so much more about how we're not in control of things. Like, are you guys familiar with like quantum theory and like quarks? Have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
So like, we don't know how this works, but we know that certain quarks are connected, and you could have a quark here and on Mars, and it takes 15 minutes for light to get to Mars. So if you want, and you could affect a quark here, and it'll affect that one on Mars at exactly the same time. Like, that's breaking.
Well, quantum doesn't work according to.
Yeah, like that's breaking a lot of our rules on how things work. And we have no idea how it does. Like, they're trying to create computers out of quantum mechanics right now, and the biggest problem is they can't control them. And so they're not precise. They're super powerful, but they're not precise. And so that's, those are, we just keep going, or just the vastness of space like that. We're talking about the James Webb telescope that they just and that's, that thing could see from the surface of Earth. It could see a nightlight on the moon. Like, that's obscene. That's obscene. Right? Like, that's and I think as Christians, and we're listening to this, and God, and we're going to go into bigger stuff that God's talking about, it should help to humble us, that when we feel like these are the answers here, and we almost make a God and salvation out of our answers to things, I think it's good to still be humble, because new information should enhance the faith, not destroy it. And if little green men showed up from somewhere, I think a lot of people would struggle with that, but or if we find out more stuff about how the universe works, all of that, So I think it's always good to take a position of humbleness in all of that. And that's kind of what got me out of thinking a certain way about the creation and kind of embracing that song, because I'd much rather believe that I was sung into existence than merely like, no, this is how it happened type of thing, And so that's, yeah. All right. Does anyone else have anything else before we continue on here?
When he talks about the oxen.
Yeah.
What I read is, you think you're the master of your universe.
Yeah.
Because he says, all right, so you bind him. All right, so you domesticated him.
Yeah.
And now you use his strength to till your fields.
Yeah.
And your attitude is, well, if I do this, the crop is going to come.
Mm.
And God's saying, I'm the one that decides.
Yeah.
You know, like he says, do you have faith in him that he will return your grain?
That's a good point. And it's one that I was watching on the TikToks yesterday. That a guy was like, it is 2022. Why are we in a place where we worry about nuclear war and these people getting bombed out, and that there's another country shelling residential areas of another country? Is like, are we not beyond this? And that ox thing kind of speaks to that. You know, there's always an upset. There can always be upsetting of the apple cart like that, you know, like that's, and so yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's good. And I think that's wisdom for our own day, you know?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's continue on. Verse 6, was it there? 40? Yeah. Verse 6 of 40. Oh, I wanted to talk about that. Job's response. There's two ways that we could really read Job's response at the beginning of 40. One is that he's beginning to be humbled. The other one is it was a tradition in Mesopotamian cultures in that time that gesture meant I want more information. I haven't heard enough. I got that from this Jewish study Bible, and my other study Bibles did not say that. But I thought that was interesting, and it may be a good exercise in humbleness for us as we continue to be compelled by what's being read on the page. So I'll actually back up. We'll listen to Job's reading once again, and you guys can. Yeah, Ed.
One of the footnotes in my Bible, and I'm not sure where it really fits in this, but I thought it was interesting. It gives 4 views of suffering.
Okay.
Satan's view is that people believe in God only when they are prospering and not suffering, which is wrong.
Yeah.
The view of Job's 3 friends is that suffering is God's judgment for sin. And of course, that's not always true. Elihu's view is that suffering is God's way to teach, discipline, and refine. And then God's view is suffering causes us to trust God for who he is, not what he does.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I think, yeah, like that's like, I think like, I try not to give like too many answers because I don't have any, but like, I think like with the Isaiah metaphor of like refiner's fire type of thing, I think is kind of there. There's nothing good about that fire, you know, but you can be refined in it. And so that's, it may destroy it too though, but but you know, so I think, yeah, I think that's kind of what I heard as you were reading that, Ed. So yeah. Thanks for sharing. So here we'll continue going. We'll read Job's response again. So it's verse 3 of chapter 40. Hit this button, and then go up to 3. And here we go.
Then Job answered the Lord.
Behold, I am vile. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer. Yes, twice, but I will proceed no further.
Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind.
Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Would you indeed annul my judgment? Would you condemn me that you may be justified? Have you an arm like God? Or can you thunder with a voice like his? Then adorn yourself with majesty and splendor, and array yourself with glory and beauty. Disperse the rage of your wrath. Look on everyone who is proud, and humble him. Look on everyone who is proud, and bring him low. Tread down the wicked in their place. Hide them in the dust together. Bind their faces in hidden darkness. Then I will also confess to you that your own right hand can save me. Look now at the Behemoth, which I made along with you. He eats grass like an ox. See now, his strength is in his hips, and his power is in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are tightly knit. His bones are like beams of bronze, his ribs like bars of iron. He is the first of the ways of God. Only he who made him can bring near his sword. Surely the mountains yield food for him, and all the beasts of the field play there. He lies under the lotus trees in a covert of reeds and marsh. The lotus trees cover him with their shade. The willows by the brook surround him. Indeed, the river may rage, yet he is not disturbed. He is confident, though the Jordan gushes into his mouth, though he takes it in his eyes, or one pierces his nose with a snare.
All right, I want to talk about this. All right, so we get in. So we're talking about Behemoth here, and so look at what God says in verses 11 kind of through 14. Like it's all about it's talking about pride. So I'm about pride, and he's basically calling that kind of like the advent of the wicked type of thing, you know, and we're seeing that, and I think we're kind of meant to look at that. And let's actually go back a little bit more. So if you view what the Hebrews said about what Job said about him putting his mouth, and that was like, hey, I want more information. It makes sense what God says afterwards. He's like, oh, you want more? Mm-hmm. Like, I'll give you more. And then he's like, do you have arms like me? Like, I don't know, that's verse 9, you know, or like that's, you know, can you do all that? And it talks about the pride, and then it goes into Behemoth. Now, everyone is trying to figure out what Behemoth looks like. Like, there's a huge subset of the population that's like, oh man, that sounds like a dinosaur. Like that's fun, but I think it's more fun if you look at someone else. So other people will be like, oh, like, you know, that could be an elephant or something like that. I think you're trying to bring the real into this too much. What kind of mythical beast does virtually every culture in the world have? They have dragons.
Yeah.
It sounds, think about how this is put. Like it beams like bronze, like this is. I think it's very interesting that pretty much every culture has dragons in their mythology. And we can talk about that at another time, why that could be, because that's probably related to dinosaurs.
That's what I would say.
Yeah. But I think it's fascinating here because you look at how he's described, you know, that he's made of armor and only the ways of God can ever come close to him with a sword. I mean, think about all those medieval, conquests of dragons, of like, you know, saving maidens and all that stuff.
King George.
Yeah. Like that's all like.
He's in the river, and the water is frightening to the Jews.
Yeah. So, and what is the state?
It's the water.
Yeah, what is the state of Behemoth in the water? Is he worried about the water?
No.
Sticking it in his mouth.
Yeah, like he's at. I wrote my note. I wrote, and here's we're listening to it. Is complete unfear.
Mhm.
You know, and then notice what God says there. Let's see here. 23 and 24 kind of says this. Indeed, the river may rage, yet he's fine. He is confident through the Jordan gushes into his mouth. That's over there. Though he takes it in his eyes, though he takes it in his eyes, or one pierces his nose with a snare. What's he saying there?
Can you control it?
Can you control it?
Right.
Can you control it? No. All right. Cool. That's a good setup for Leviathan. Leviathan is next.
Question.
Yeah.
Verse 12, where it says, "Look on all who are proud and bring them low." That reminded me of the first are last, and the last are first.
Yeah. And so it's and we're going to get to this in a second. We may go over a little bit, but I think it's good to finish Job here. It's my assessment that the book of Job's wisdom is in a call for humility. Like that's really what I think Job is all about. I think that's what he's trying to tell us. So let's go to Leviathan, chapter 41. So we hit this button, we hit this button, and here we go. Leviathan, my favorite one.
Can you draw out Leviathan with a hook, or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? Can you put a reed through his nose, or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he make many supplications to you? Will he speak softly to you? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you take him as a servant forever? Will you play with him as with a bird? Or will you leash him for your maidens? Will your companions make a banquet of him? Will they apportion him among the merchants? Can you fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? Lay your hand on him. Remember the battle. Never do it again. Indeed, any hope of overcoming him is false. Shall one not be overwhelmed at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that he would dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has preceded me that I should pay him? Everything under heaven is mine. I will not conceal his limbs, his mighty power, or his graceful proportions. Who can remove his outer coat? Who can approach him with a double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face with his terrible teeth all around? His rows of scales are his pride, shut up tightly as with a seal. One is so near another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together and cannot be parted. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lights. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke goes out of his nostrils as from a boiling pot, and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame goes out of his mouth. Strength dwells in his neck, and sorrow dances before him. The folds of his flesh are joined together. They are firm on him and cannot be moved. His heart is as hard as stone, even as hard as the lower millstone. When he raises himself up, the mighty are afraid. Because of his crashings, they are beside themselves. Though the sword reaches him, it cannot avail, nor does spear, dart, or javelin. He regards iron as straw, and bronze as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Sling stones become like stubble to him. Darts are regarded as straw. He laughs at the threat of javelins. His undersides are like sharp potsherds. He spreads pointed marks in the mire. He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining wake behind him. One would think the deep had white hair. On earth there is nothing like him which is made without fear. He beholds every high thing. He is king over all the children of pride.
Yeah, like that's some of my favorite sections in all of Scripture, the stuff about Leviathan, because it marries. The reason why I love it, it marries our understanding of Hebrews, of the Hebrew people, that they're scared of the sea, they're scared, like all that stuff, like with the idea of creation, and Behemoth is getting us there, where we see these comfortable in the waters, even though it's rushing, he's just drinking it, you know. But Leviathan is like the very next thing, and I love how all this is put in Leviathan. Like Leviathan is the scariest thing that one could imagine, you know, like it's like Behemoth, but in the water, you know, like that's big old sea monster, you know, like that's, and we still have all these stories, you know, like you know, Moby Dick is a Leviathan story, you know, like it's all these stories about these things coming from the deep. And I love verse 5. It's my favorite one. I talk about it all the time. But he goes, will you play with him as you play with a bird, or will you leash him for your maidens? And I love that when it's like, can you put a leash on him for your girls? You know, and the whole implication is that God can.
I noticed in 10 and 11, in my translation, it continues to talk about Leviathan as Leviathan. But in that translation that was on the
New King James, yeah,
it refers to those two verses as being God, not Leviathan.
Oh, so no one is able to stand up against me, and then that's Leviathan. That's interesting. That's interesting. So
it says, no one is so fierce as to dare to stir it up, meaning Leviathan.
Yeah.
Who can stand before it? Who can confront it and be safe under the whole heaven? Who?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one said refers to it being God.
So
It's different.
I hope we're recovering. The verse numbers get weird.
Nice being a footnote.
Hebrew.
So there's probably pronoun stuff going on. And
Translation.
in all honesty, this is New King James. King James is a fine translation, but it's got its fair share of issues, and so and this one's closer than the others, and there could be something going on in the language. I'm having problems finding it here. It's not the same. We have different verse headings here. Never think about. I'll do it again. Okay, then here we go. 9. There's no one so fierce or robust too. Everything under the heavens is mine. I will not be silent concerning him or praise exploits. Who could uncover his outer garments? Who can penetrate the folds of his shawls? Who can pry them? So that's like yours. So the Hebrews are translating it like your Bible is.
Yeah.
So so the Jewish one. So what's probably happening is there's probably something clever that the author is doing where it could be either or. It's kind of talking about all this at the same time. Yeah. Like this kind of, there's probably something That's why we read multiple translations, because that's probably something that's being read in there. And a translator's like, well, how do we do this? Like that. So it's probably like an either or. You could read that in either way. Yeah, no, that's really good though. Let's see here. I think it's amazing that he starts saying, it's like, I will not conceal his limbs or his mighty power or his graceful proportions. I had a professor at seminary, and I'll remember this the day I die. He goes, a hurricane isn't evil. It's just a big old powerful mighty wind. And it's evil because it affects us.
Can do evil.
Like that. And that's the same. He goes, that big almighty wind, when it's not affecting anybody out in the ocean, like all that. And so that's the same energy as what he's saying about Leviathan there. It's like, no, I'm not going to conceal. I'm not going to stop his power. Like that. That's because that power is good and holy and can make the sea look like it's boiling and all that. That's, you think about like when a whale hits the water and it just for a long time afterwards, all the bubbles are coming up, and like it's I like this too. I read verse 32. He leaves a shining wake behind him. One would think that the deep had white hair. I'm kind of I think we have like I think there's like this cultural understanding that when you get something that scares you, it like turns your hair white type of thing. I kind of, that's how I read that. I don't know if you guys get a different sense to that than I did.
You read the next one on there is nothing on earth. Nothing on earth is his equal.
Yeah.
A creature without fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I highlighted.
Yeah. So it's, and so he is, and then you see what this is all about. Behold, every high thing, he is king over all the children of pride. Like that's, and you can see what this is all about. Like there's nothing that's above. This is the biggest, nastiest thing that you could ever be scared of. And if we go back, and my favorite way to view this, and yet I can put them as a leash for my girls.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Like that's my favorite way to view this chapter.
And are you going to play with him? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to keep him like a bird?
Yeah.
Like, and the implication is there. It's like, I can.
And they can tussle and
Yeah. I can. Yeah. So that's great. So and I think we get there. And so with that understanding now of like, I think we're moving into this understanding of pride versus humbleness. Let's read the last chapter. Okay. Because I think there's dividends here. And I know we're going a little late, but like, I want to get through it. All right, let's see here. I'm going to hit this button. Here we go. We go to the next chapter. All right. And then here we go. Job's response. We're going to finish up the chapter.
I know that you can do everything, and that no purpose of yours can be withheld from you. You asked, who is this who hides counsel?
Is there an issue?
No.
All right.
Without knowledge. Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Listen, please, and let me speak. You said, I will question you, and you shall answer me. I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes.
And so it was, after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, that the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite,
My wrath is aroused against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. Now therefore, take for yourselves 7 bulls and 7 rams. Go to my servant Job, and offer up for yourselves a burnt offering. my servant Job shall pray for you. For I will accept him, lest I deal with you according to your folly, because you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has.
So Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite went, and did as the Lord commanded them, for the Lord had accepted Job. And the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. Indeed, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then all his brothers, all his sisters, and all those who had been his acquaintances before came to him and ate food with him in his house. And they consoled him and comforted him for all the adversity that the Lord had brought upon him. Each one gave him a piece of silver, and each a ring of gold. Now the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. For he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of the first Jemimah, the name of the second Keziah, and the name of the third Keren-Hapuk. In all the land were found no women so beautiful as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. After this, Job lived 140 years, and saw his children and grandchildren for 4 generations. So Job died, old and full of days.
Okay. All right. Well, so what's Job's reaction? What is
Humble.
so yeah. Like in that, like it's almost like I can't. I can't. You know, it's almost like word salad there. That he's just like, I don't know.
I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, all the things I was taught about you.
Yeah.
But now I really know you.
Mm.
My eye sees you.
Yeah. And then what does he do?
Therefore, I despise myself. I understand my pride,
Mm-hmm.
and I repent.
I repent. And here's the thing, and this is what made me stand up when we did that Job sermon series like 4 years ago now. Here is the first time I saw that. Is what does Job do that's weird next? God, what does God ask of the Job's friends?
Pray for his friends.
Yeah, he asks, and he doesn't ask Job to do it. Notice that he doesn't ask Job to do it. Job just does it.
Yeah.
He tells his friends, go.
He tells them what Job will do.
Yeah. He knows what Job will do.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Job of 4 chapters ago would have done that.
Yeah.
Where his friends are treating us like, no, you guys go eat a lemon.
He felt they were-
Yeah, like that, you know,
Yeah.
like that's, and so God's like, you have not spoken to me what is right, as my servant Job has.
But why didn't God address Elihu?
Well,
He only addressed 3 of the 4.
yeah. There's a lot of different reasons for that. The first one is I wouldn't be concerned too much about it. Number 2, there's a strong theory that the 4th one was added later, but it's that wasn't part of the original document. But yeah, I would go ahead and lump him into the original 3, like this. Just go into that, and so like that's.
This doesn't point that out anywhere. I noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the way this read says, it compares Jesus with Job.
Okay.
It says, in Jesus, God came not in power and majesty, but in poverty and pain.
Mm-hmm.
Job stands as the clearest Old Testament example of unfairness, an upright man who suffered greatly. Jesus stands as the New Testament example, a perfect man who suffered even more.
Mm-hmm.
Both hint at a happy ending after all.
Yeah. And so I think it's amazing that God goes, you didn't talk to me right. You didn't treat me right, but my boy Job did. And I want you guys to gather a sacrifice. And he basically says, I want you to go to Job with the sacrifice, and Job will pray for you.
7 bulls and 7 rams.
Yeah.
Again, completeness, 7.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's full. Yeah.
It's
I love that.
It's interesting that he only speaks of the girls, not the sons.
Oh, with the at the end there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So all right, hold that. We'll get to that. That's an interesting. I hadn't noticed that. That's hold that.
Sorry.
So no, that's good. I hadn't noticed that. But I think that's a continuation of our theme here. So we see that Job then prays for them. How is this prayer different than the prayers and sacrifices Job was doing at the beginning of the book? What's different? Why is Job doing what he's doing?
The purpose.
What?
The purpose.
The purpose. What is this purpose?
Instead of trying to make up for something somebody else did per se,
Yeah.
he's realizing now that God is fully in control, and he's trying to do something and also be humble at the same time.
I would say that we have a common word for this. I think it's forgiveness.
Oh yeah.
Like that he's offering complete forgiveness here, and that forgiveness has now come out of tragedy and humbleness. Like that he's able to forgive them, and I think that's what this is all about. I think that's what this book is all about, is that it's this journey of Job into humbleness, where everything he did before was, I need to make sure I do all this right so I don't go to hell.
He's a rule follower.
Yeah, and then now, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I do these things for forgiveness of these people around me. And so then getting to your thing then. So it talks about all of his sheep and donkeys, and it's just thousands upon thousands upon that, which is numbers of just massive. And so you said he's got daughters here. Let's
seven sons and 3 daughters.
Yeah.
I have those numbers.
Yeah, those are good numbers too.
And then he named the daughters.
That's interesting.
Nobody more beautiful.
So,
and he married them off.
Yeah.
But what about the sons?
So yeah, what do you guys think?
The footnote I have
Yeah.
is that Job was normally the inheritance went to the males.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Job is so blessed with property and goods that his daughters are so pleasing that he divides his goods among both sons and daughters.
Yeah.
Job's experience of the Lord's fairness, justice, and equality in life is demonstrated in his own family dealings.
Okay, so
in the tradition, the girls meant nothing.
Yeah.
Yes. As soon as you said that, I was like, "What? Excuse me, Ed." Like that's and I was like, "Let's get back to that." And now they're included, which is unreal message of humbleness.
Yeah.
That even the girls now are included. Like that's I had always missed that, Ed.
Sorry, girls.
Yeah, I had always missed that, and in the footnote, that's the Lutheran Study Bible, right?
Yes.
That's
Like the LCMS one.
And by naming his first daughter, he's giving her the same honor as the first son.
See, and the fact that those notes are written in the LCMS, but that's incredible. And so you see this journey of humbleness is complete, where he's no longer doing sacrifices of hedging. He's doing sacrifices of forgiveness, but he's also acting in, I'm no better than anyone else, not even my daughters.
Where before,
Yeah.
he was a good guy,
That's
but,
cool.
he had the chip on it,
Yeah.
Job's here, everybody, that kind of.
Yeah. So my theory about the book of Job is that he's actually not that righteous at the beginning. He is, but it's
for pay.
It's for pay. It's to keep all this. So we're doing to bring it into what we're doing this weekend. Oh, it's the fig tree this weekend. We're not spending a ton of time on this, but when Jesus curses the fig tree, he looks at it from a distance, and it's got all the leaves on it and all that stuff. It looks like everything is perfect, but there's no fruit. And I think, and this is just Chris Escher, and a lot of people disagree with me, but there are a lot of people that are wrong in this world.
Self-denying.
Yeah. Speaking of pride and humbleness and all that, but that Job is like that tree with the figs. That there's not a lot of fruitfulness, but we see the fruitfulness here at the end.
In the last chapter.
Yeah, in the last chapter, because he's finally said, whatever may come.
And in the ELCA, it just makes a quick reference that Job wanted to give the inheritance to the daughters and included with the brothers.
Yeah, see, that's cool. I had missed that before. That's good. This is why we do Bible studies with multiple people, because that's cool. Does this thing say anything about that?
He also gives the daughters an inheritance along with their brothers, a rare practice in ancient Israel, period.
Yeah.
And in the end, Job showed the devil lost his challenge.
What'd you say? Oh,
The devil lost the challenge.
oh yeah. Yeah, the devil lost the challenge.
Yes. Yes.
Job never really badmouthed.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it also a message of you can't earn the forgiveness?
Yeah, I think that's
And
It's-
the whole.
for an Old Testament book. It's very cross-shaped.
But he does, in fact, at the end, earn forgiveness
Yeah,
by praying for his enemies.
Right.
yeah. Yeah, like and that's why I think it was always interesting. Like God's like, no, Job spoke right for me, and I think it's that little bit at the end, and you guys were all bad on him. Like that's, yeah. So they're saying kind of the same stuff. The other ones did, I think. So cool, Job. All right. So people on Zoom, how does this format work well? For it's easy to follow along.
Yeah.
With listening to the Bible and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good. Because that's because doing a Bible study this way with reading a lot of it and all that stuff is much easier on me, and I get a lot out of it just because we're digesting and all of that stuff, and it's not just relying on me having all the right answers. I can just do a quick little thing and yeah, like that's, and so yeah, and we're able to. I mean, we did Job in what was that, 5 weeks? Like it's a huge book, and we read every word of Job, which is
somebody read.
Somebody did, yeah. And that's also why I like doing this. too many Bible studies like this. So for all of them. So let's pray. Jesus, we thank you for all the good things you give us. We thank you for your scriptures. Lord, we thank you for the book of Job. Lord, help us to put aside pride and take up your mantle of humbleness. But Lord, we know that you, through your humbleness towards us, save us just like Job's family. And Lord, please be with all of the servants in Ukraine, all the people of Ukraine, everyone around there. It's just it's a scary situation. But Lord, as they flee their country and into other places, Lord, let us remember with humbleness all the other refugees from everywhere else. And Lord, continue to be with Gloria and all that are sick, that are our friends. Just continue to heal them up. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us and letting us go late. So that was good. That was good. So thank you so much, everyone in Zoom.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take your time.
Oh yeah, time change on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. All right. We'll see ya.